Have you ever wondered about getting to know notable persons whose history has been noted to have done commendable deeds? The people we will be talking about today were military men served in the Imperial Japanese Army. They are not just known for their military occupation, but because they were bold and courageous in the face of harsh hostility. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 people who were discovered. Hiroo Onoda. Hiroo Onoda was a Japanese man who lived from the 19th of March 1922 to the 16th of January 2014. He fought in the Second World War as Imperial Japanese Army intelligence. The Imperial Japanese Army functioned as the official ground armed forces of the Japanese Empire. It was headed by the Japanese Army General Staff Office and the Ministry of the Army, who were both subordinates of the Japanese Emperor. Hiroo Onoda was not only notable for being a part of the Imperial Japanese Army, but rather for his courageous and brave act in August 1945, which was towards the end of the war. Subsequently, after the war ended, he spent another 29 years hiding in the Philippines. This was not an act of cowardice, but rather an act of commitment and patriotism to his call to duty. This he continued until he was relieved of his duty by an order of the then Emperor of Japan, Showa, in 1974, alongside a presidential pardon. Up until he was relieved of duty from the Imperial Japanese Army intelligence, he served as the second lieutenant, and just like his rank, he was also the second to last person to surrender, with the last being Teruo Nakamura. Aside the professional occupation of being a military man, Hiroo Onoda was also a cattle farmer, a profession inherited from the Kamikawa village, Laxo district, Wakayama, Japan, before he got enlisted to the Imperial Japanese Army Infantry at the age of 18. Onoda was an intelligence officer alongside some other officials who were instructed to do all within their might to obscure all attacks of the enemy. Not too long after, his co-intelligence officers had either surrendered or passed away. This facilitated his promotion to lieutenant, of which he then ordered his men to take to hiding. He documented in detail his life as a fighter in the war in an autobiography titled No Surrender, My 30-Year War. This autobiography was written shortly after his return from the war. Though not documented in his autobiography, accounts of locals have it that he took the life of persons in the town where he went into hiding. Upon his return, Onoda was quite displeased and bothered with the decline in the traditional values of Japan. In 1975, he finally left Japan for Brazil, following closely the example of his elder brother to rear cattle. Subsequently, he got married in 1976 and assumed a leadership role in the Japanese community in Terenos, Brazil, which was known as the Jamek colony. He also held various educational and enlightening camps for different young persons across Japan. On the 6th of December 2004, the Brazilian Air Force awarded him the meritorious Medal of Santos Dumont. Also, on the 21st of February 2010, the Legislative Assembly of Mato Grosso do Sul honored him with the title of Cidadão, which means a citizen. Sadly, on the 16th of January 2014, he passed away as a result of heart failure coming from pneumonia complications. Shoichi Yokoi. Just like Hiroo Onoda, Shoichi Yokoi also served in the Imperial Japanese Army in the Second World War. He is among the last set of 3 people that were found in 1945 after they went into hiding on the order of Hiroo Onoda. Shoichi Yokoi lived from the 31st of March 1915 to September 22, 1997. He served as a sergeant and was found in the Guam jungle about 28 years after the hostility had ended. Aside his professional occupation as a sergeant, Yokoi was an apprentice in tailoring until he was conscripted into the army. Yokoi served in Manchukuo with the 29th Infantry Division. He was later transferred in 1943 to the 38th Regiment in the Marina Islands before arriving in Guam in February 1943. After his encounter with American forces that led to the victory over his island, he had to flee alongside another 9 Japanese soldiers after the Battle of Guam in 1944. Among the initial 10 soldiers, 7 of them had to relocate, while only 3 stayed. This division, however, didn't cause any dent for their ties. They visited each other at intervals until the 1964 flood that caused the loss of life of the other 2. After this uneventful passing of the other 2, Yokoi was all alone, making his daily survival hard work. He made his clothing, bedding, and other day-to-day equipment from native plants. After many years alone, he was later discovered in the wilderness by Jesus Duenas and Manuel de Gracia, who came to check their fishing traps around a small river known as Talofofo. Yokoi attacked them out of fear, deeming them to be dangerous. He was later captured and carted away to the local commissioner, where he was physically and medically examined. He was declared medically healthy despite his thin and weak structure. Out of shame and remorse, he apologized with these words, "It is with much embarrassment that I return," which gained popularity among the Japanese. Despite his long stay in the jungle for the space of 28 years, he knew World War II had ended. But out of the necessary fears of being disgraced, he had to stay away. Yokoi was the antepenultimate Japanese soldier to lay down his arms after the war, prior to Second Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda and Private Teruo Nakamura's surrender. Teruo Nakamura. Teruo Nakamura, who is also widely known as Sunoyo, lived from October 8, 1919 to June 15, 1979. Just like the rest, he also served in the Imperial Japanese Army as a Taiwanese Japanese soldier in World War II. Teruo Nakamura is also notable for an equally courageous and brave act in World War II. He did not surrender even when the hostility was intense. That was until 1974, when he was among the last 3 soldiers that surrendered. Teruo was enlisted as a volunteer in the Takasago unit of the Japanese Imperial Army. In September 1944, the Morotai Island in Indonesia, where he was stationed, was overrun by Allies in what was famously termed as the Battle of Morotai. On the 13th of November 1945, Teruo Nakamura was declared deceased by the Imperial Japanese Army. However, the fact appears that Teruo escaped captivity and lived amongst some other stragglers on the island. Unfortunately, the small hut where Teruo Nakamura and some other stragglers lived was accidentally discovered in 1974 by a pilot. To people's uttermost disbelief, Teruo was discovered to be alive. In Jakarta, the Japanese embassy requested the collaborative effort of the Indonesian government in arresting Teruo Nakamura. Alongside the Indonesian Air Force, they jointly conducted a search mission, which led to the eventual arrest of Teruo on the 18th of December 1974. Immediately, he was transported to Jakarta, and on the 27th of December 1974, the news was sent to Japan about his eventual arrest. After his arrest, Teruo was hospitalized at Jakarta. He eventually passed away of lung cancer 5 years after his arrest. But what do you make of these 3 Japanese soldiers who were finally discovered? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.